What is the number one reason you don't want to have kids? Write in the comments what you think about it. Do you want children? Enjoy the show. Story 1. Caffeine. I gave it up back in 2004, and it's crazy to see how many people consume large amounts of it every day. I am a welder, and every one of the welders drinks Monsters all day every day. You would think that because they are drinking Monster that are all young, but the age range is early 20s to mid 50s. It's not just the welders. Everyone in the office is drinking multiple cups of coffee every day. Story 2. I don't necessarily not want to have kids, but the more I see people with asshole kids, the more I'm glad I don't have them. Also, you become a servant to them for a very long time. When they are young, you are doing everything for them. Then it becomes getting them to and from sports and activities that will steal your weekend and just a lifetime of having less money. Anecdotally, I dated a woman for a couple years who had a child with bad ADHD. I was around between ages 6, 8. It took him hours to fall asleep every night, and he just wouldn't listen. He was a very sweet kid for half the time, and the other half, he was a nightmare. He wet his bed every night and would come into her room almost every night, in the middle of the night as well. She allowed me to discipline him, and honestly, the kid loved me. He would thank me for teaching him life lessons. But since he wasn't mine, I never had the connection or love to forgive him for ruining an evening like his mother could. She was very patient with him, and she tried her best. She understood his condition better than I, and I would oftentimes get in arguments, possibly overstepping, with her on how to parent him. Some of those convos I regret and some I stand by, but it was very hard being a single parent to a kid like that, and her ex-husband was a pathetic loser who I saw every time I looked at the kid, which didn't help matters. Story 3. I get one life and I'm going to live it for me above anyone else. I am very independent and refuse to give up my freedom to people I haven't even met yet. The most responsibility I want is my pets, and at least I don't have to send them to college or worry about their futures. Story 4. Can't afford it. It would be cruel to have kids when I know I might be able to make ends meet, but that's about it. I can just about afford life and be comfortable, but not with kids. If I had money, I'd have them, because I'd know I could care for their needs properly. Instead, I have to tell people I just don't want kids, because they try to tell me money isn't an issue, you'll figure it out. I can't handle having kids and having to stress about them needing new shoes. Story 5. I am terrible at being an adult, keeping track of necessary tasks, administrative stuff, medical stuff. I would just be constantly frustrated and terrified that I was fucking my kid up terribly. The anxiety disorder doesn't help either. Plus, my partner already has 3 kids who live elsewhere with their mom, and they're great, but, oh my god, expensive. Plus, I really disagree with the cultural shift that has happened since I was a kid, wherein children must be constantly supervised and kept busy, and letting them learn to do absolutely anything out in the world independently can literally get you arrested. I'd be so mad about that all the time. Walking and biking all over the place as a kid, and just generally being bored and creating my own fun were some of the only merits of my upbringing, and I'd be pissed to not be able to give those gifts to my own child, in addition to, actually treating them with love, encouraging their interests, and so on, things I didn't get. There are not human traffickers hiding around every corner to steal your child, people. OMG WTF. Story 6. I genuinely don't believe humans are doing well on this planet, and it's only going to get worse until we destroy everything and die out. Terrible to say, but we can't get along, not even our high officials who are to be the best and most capable among us. Ha! Instead, they fight like children. We have no respect for nature or animals. I don't think I want to bring an innocent being into a world like this. Story 7. We have decided to have a kid, but the things that were on the "don't have a kid" column were money. I am self-employed, so it will be a huge hit. What if I don't like the person the kid grows up to be? What if they are born with specific needs that I can't cope with? What if something bad happens to them in life? Can you tell I have anxiety? And what if it changes things for the worse? I always tell people that I'll be heartbroken if I can't have kids, and I will, but a life with a ton of dogs would be much less stressful. Story 8. I was an unwanted child raised in a very poor family in a very poor country. The cycle of generational poverty and trauma ends with me. Financially, things are much better now, but I can no longer cohabit with anyone long term. Even house guests become too much after a week or so. Story 9. I just cannot imagine ever being fine with having a super tough week or feeling unwell or being in need of peace and time for yourself. Coming home and there being a little creature there completely dependent on you and in need of every ounce of energy, attention, and care you have to offer. Once you get them, you cannot, should not want to, get rid of them. It's a huge commitment, and it puts everything else on the back burner, because I do feel like if you make the choice to have children, they should become your priority, mostly because they simply cannot take care of themselves and do not understand the world they're in, so you need to guide them. I'm not sure if I will be able to want them so much that having to reprioritize everything else in my life and relocate my energy won't seem impossible. Story 10. I might consider it in another country, but I'd have to keep them off the internet. Live, super rural, build a family business so they don't have to navigate the real world. The current social climate is not good. It's youth wealth and label obsessed. A good majority, not everyone obviously, wake up every day with the "what can I get offended about" mentality, or the "all the reasons to be miserable" outlook. I've been alive long enough to remember when the opposite existed. People's default was to find the humor in life, realize it could be worse when something goes wrong. They considered the source and intent behind words, rather than assign words imaginary power over us. They knew we decide, and we get to choose how we are affected by what other people say and think. You got to grow up and be silly free, occasionally wild, and even foolish, without being recorded and exploited by your own parents, friends, bystanders, or even worse, completely maligned by thousands upon thousands of hypocritical strangers with their own issues. And no offense to anyone, but I don't want to explain gender ambiguity to a little kid. When I was little, it was okay to just be a physical woman with boyish traits and interests. I didn't need people to refer to me as they, just because I didn't want to be seen as a stereotypical girl. Please don't downvote me if that's how you've chosen to handle feeling like you're a little if both. I respect everyone's right to live their own truth. I'm just saying it's a very hard thing to wrap a child's mind around, and I can't imagine the stress of explaining it wrong. I gotta go through normal growing up phases of acting and dressing boyish or girlish, and yeah, I had to navigate a world it was okay to tease you about it, but it prepared me to be an adult who can just laugh and not get mad at words. I get mad at bad people, and I go by actions. Making people say all the correct words doesn't change what's in their heart. And no one can steal who you know yourself to be with words of identification unless you are letting them. Life as a human can be inherently difficult. Make sure you aren't adding to that unnecessarily, and remind yourself to see the glass half full. Story 11, the cost. Not just money, but time. I see how my other adult friends have to zip all over the place for practices and plays and have no free time. The kid needs this. The kid needs that. Daycare and summer camp and everything. You have no time left to yourself anymore. What if we don't like each other? What if we hate each other? There's no guarantee you will even like being around your kid or they you. What if I do everything right and end up with a school shooter? Story 12. So many reasons. I get chronic migraines. I cannot stand the noises children make because they trigger them. I understand they are kids, but knowing the fact if they keep going with the high-pitched screams and crying makes me so upset because migraines are not fun and they don't always go away with medication. My partner's family has small children. I love them dearly, but I can only spend limited time with them because of how loud AMD rambunctious they are. I almost always leave with a migraine. I can barely take care of myself. I cannot take care of another person. I have a lot of mental health issues. I would probably not be mentally well. If they get sick, I get sick. I have a fear of vomit. I can't even hear someone clear their throat without fearing they are going to be sick. Money. I live in a state that has a high cost of living. A studio is easily $1,200 a month sometimes. I cannot afford a child. Story 13. I can't afford them. They're too expensive. I can barely take care of my dog, 2 cats, 3 spiders, and a BF that expects me to clean up after him. I'll also be 35, F this year, so the chances of having a baby with mental or physical defects goes up. I care too much for my peace and quiet. I don't want to pass on my mental illnesses to a child. I had a hard enough time as a kid. I wouldn't wish it on anyone that was bullied for being different. I also don't feel as if I could give them the quality of life they deserve. Story 14. I am extremely anxious and paranoid, and I would be a pain in the ass with my kids like my dad was when I started going out by myself. I understand the worry, but hearing a lot of recent stories, like the psycho cunt who killed a fucking 3YO in a parking lot in front of his mother, has put me on edge, because even if people who hurt kids eventually get caught, they are not always properly punished. I still remember hearing about the bus driver who didn't get jail time for raping a girl because he got enough punishment. Proper punishment would have been public castration. Story 15. I don't want kids yet, and I'm in my 30s, and I have a feeling by the time I'm at a point where I might want one, it'll likely be too late. But right now I play lots of sports, travel every other month, and I love having social time. I feel like I've just recovered after COVID. Having a kid changes your whole life and your purpose, and I'd resent a child if I had to do that for them right now. I also have 5 nephews and nieces, so I get lots of cuddles and playtime without the financial and mental responsibility. Story 16. I am terrified of childbirth. The amount of times I've heard of birth going wrong, or one of my parents' friends needing a surgery because their vagina plus asshole prolapsed due to how big the child was, needing an emergency C-section, or going off my medications. I have medical trauma, so the idea of giving birth having a tiny human dwell inside me freaks me TF out. Not to mention the discrimination I would receive as a trans man being pregnant. At the doctors or in public. Story 17, I literally cannot pick just one. I hate chaos that I cannot control. I don't like messes or things that make them faster than I can clean them up. I like sleep, money, and hobbies. I'm also truly afraid that if I got an ugly or special needs kid that I wouldn't love it. And I realize that's a horrible thing to say, but I'm at least self-aware enough to know that it would translate into me being a trash parent. There are tons of health problems in my family that I don't want to pass on to another generation. IMO, the default should be not having children. It takes a lot of time, money, effort, patience, and love to raise a kid, and it should very much be an intentional decision. If anyone even has the slightest shadow of a doubt about kids, they shouldn't have them. Too many kids are abused or neglected. Maybe there wouldn't be as many if people realized they don't have to have kids. Also because sex ed and access to birth control and abortions is reprehensible in the US, but I'll stay off that soapbox for now. Story 18. I don't want the responsibility. It also takes a lot of money to raise a child. My body is already fucked up as it is. No need to go through all those hormonal changes. There's also the inequality between men and women in terms of chores and taking care of the kids. Besides that, you have a lot of children in orphanages in need of a home. I like my peace and freedom. All in all, I just don't want children. Never did. Something most people don't realize is that a child isn't something you can just put into this world as a whim. You also can't just count on them to fill the void of loneliness. They will have a life of their own, and taking care of you when you're old isn't part of it. Story 19. I honestly don't have any great feeling either way, and I'm well aware that it's a decision that I definitely should have significant feelings on. At my point in life, I'm fairly comfortable, steadily working towards getting a handle on financial goals, to the extent that, if it became a pressing priority, it wouldn't be massively onerous. And I don't have any major issue with children, but I don't jump at the opportunity to see or look after them. I've got nibblings, and it's nice to see them. But I'm not massively swayed down the social route to begin with, and none of the children I know have any greater pull on me than any of the adult people. I am well aware that parenting is hard. It's not always, and there are definite rewards, but you need the drive and incentive to pull yourself through those low points, and I simply don't have that. To put it bluntly, I don't want the worst, because I'm not massively appealed by the best. Story 20. If I had a child, I would like to be there for them and provide everything I never had. I want my child to have a mother and father who are present and caring and guide them in the early years of their life. Trying to find a person who is willing to commit to this nowadays is very hard. Unfortunately, every woman I have ever been with cheated on me or left me for someone else. I don't want my children to have a mother like this. Story 21. There are so many! Freedom. I can go to a friend's house instead of helping my kid with homework, for example. Money is another. Kids are extremely expensive if you want to give them a comfortable life. 2 physical reasons. I'm asexual and I know how bad pregnancy is on the body. I also have many issues I wouldn't want to pass to my children, like genetic autism, bad vision, and hearing. I also don't want to hurt another person by bringing them into this cruel world, the same world that brought me onto the edge of suicide. It feels dumb. Story 22. As someone who had kids fairly young, 22, I do not regret my kids, but the financial burden is not stressed enough. Daycare alone for 2 last year was almost $12,000 USD, and that's not a super nice daycare. Dentist appointments this month are going to be almost $2,000. Oh, clothes, food, shelter, etc. Yeah, lol, when it was just me, a cute little studio was just fine. After having kids, I've had to move from a 1 to a 2 and now to a 3-bedroom to accommodate everybody, which means every bill gets significantly higher. We make a little over 6 figures, and it's a struggle. So if there's one thing I'd say, it's the financial burden. A lot of the time people say, I want to do whatever I want, or I don't want to have to be responsible for another human, both of which are understandable, but I legitimately like hanging with the kiddos and I like going on adventures with them, but my God, financially it's so hard. Story 23. I never wanted children. Not once. Even when I was a kid, I didn't like kids. In 2008, I was 19. I started dating my now ex-husband and I was deliriously happy. When we had been dating for about 2 years, my brother-in-law came to me, then 21, and said that I should give my husband a child because he was eventually going to leave me for someone that would, because he was meant to be a dad. He also told me that he didn't like that. We lived together and had no intention of going to the next level. He came to me another time and told me that I wasn't a real woman until I had a child. I didn't think that this worked on me, but then I saw my husband playing with his nephew and realized that he would be a really good dad. As I was so happy with my then husband, I decided to talk with him about it. And he made it clear that whatever I wanted to do was what we would do, except that by that time, I didn't believe him, and I thought he was going to either cheat on me or leave me. I should have left then and not ignored the red flags I was seeing. I gave him a child out of a want for him to stay. This is not a good reason. I did not fully admit this decision was made for this reason. Until this year, we have been together for 16 years and he has done nothing but cheat on me. He has lied to me and our entire marriage, and I am truly devastated. Do not have children. If you want to take care of somebody, you can adopt. You can help through the foster care system. What have you? There's no reason to have a child at all. Do not give that man a child. Story 24. We no longer live in the era when people lived on 3 square kilometers. They didn't have much to do, and they had children by the dozen, growing them up in abject poverty. The world is big. There is so much to do, to visit. Why spoil this joy by raising children? Life is short anyway. 1 child is more than enough. In addition, why should we have children? To be the next generation of slaves, soldiers to fight for stupid old folks, to torment them with the economy, poverty, to have someone to pay mortgage loans to the banks, to turn them into this fucked up, non-binary, they slash them slash theirs, generation that no longer knows to define what is a woman and what is a man. Story 25. I have chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. Even if I was able to get a wife, it wouldn't be fair on anyone to have kids. I really want kids, but I would not have the energy nor patience for them and work full-time and be a husband. I would end up being neglectful and abusive. That would break my heart. If I were to be a husband and father, I would want to be the best husband and father, nothing less. Story 26. I feel massively pressured to have them, which in turn makes me not want them, because I don't like being told how to live my life. I am constantly told by patients why I don't have kids. I'm so great with kids and I'll be a great mom, educated unnecessarily by strangers. Essentially that it's my duty to provide for my husband who also doesn't want kids right now. But nothing is wrong with him if he doesn't want them. I've started telling people who have zero business asking that I am infertile and can't have them. Most have been receptive, and I hope feel like shit. Some have told me that's no excuse and I should be trying anyways because A, there is nothing better than feeling your own child grow inside you, which that gives me massive ick and anxiety. B, it's better to miscarriage over and over and over if it means a child will eventually result, which miscarriage is my absolute biggest fear for complications. C, I can just do IVF and get all the babies I want. I don't want them badly enough or care enough to put myself through that. I love it as an option for those who do want it. I don't. Fortunately, those conversations are far and few in between, and most people awkwardly shut up when I say I can't have them. Story 27. I don't like them. It's not that I directly hate them, they just make me nervous. I am trans female, so at some point being a father or a mother won't be possible anymore. I'm not emotionally ready to take care of a child, whether alone or with a partner, losing enormous amounts of money and time, disliking the social pressure that's put on women to have children for the sake of it, rather spending time and money on myself. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, like it, be sure to write comments and share your stories.